Which lanterns are the most collectible is kind of, you're going to get a different answer no matter who you ask. But in my opinion, the U.S. Forest Service lanterns are the most collectible. I've been serious collecting for about 15 years, and I've seen these go from $200 and $300 a piece to $2,000 and $3,000 a piece. They have drastically increased. Others have also, but not quite as much as these. They're identifiable by the embossed USFS on the font. They have mica shades. The Colemans originally came with a red vent, white underneath. All of them, according to Ernie Hyatt, who knows a lot more than I do, they all came that way. AGM makes the same lantern, same time period, also with a red vent, white underneath. I really like these a lot more than any of the others based on the value appreciation, but also these were used in the creation of our state parks, of our national parks. These were not available to the general consumer. You couldn't go into the store and buy one. These were strictly issued to the U.S. Forest Service, which makes them not as highly produced as the ones that you'd pick up in a sporting goods store. So they're not as common, and it's kind of nice to have something that everyone else doesn't have. And I really like taking them to the state parks and the national parks when I go camping, knowing that they were probably used in some of these parks that I frequent. So the U.S. Forest Service, definitely number one on my list of most collectible. What I believe is the second most collectible is the CPR lanterns. Some of these are not just for lantern collectors. Railroad collectors want these. Coleman Lantern collectors want these. When you have different groups after the same item, it seems to increase the value and the scarcity. I think the volume is going to continue to rise whenever there's more than one group after something. The Canadian Pacific Railroad lanterns were used in cabooses. Most of the time I've seen them in photographs are in cabooses with a caboose bar. They're kerosene lanterns. They have the larger 220 size font. Kerosene burned lantern. These are very cool lanterns by themselves just because of their design. They hold so much fuel. But the fact that they were used by the railroad, again, they weren't available to the general public. They were just issued to the railroad. The production numbers aren't quite as high. There's definitely more of these made than the Forest Service lanterns, but I believe that these will hold their value in the future. And these are just really cool because they were used on the railroads. So this is definitely my number two pick. These are also available in a 639 for the railroad. For the CPR, those aren't quite as valuable as these, but they may be in the future, and they're still kerosene lanterns and very cool in their own respect. So number two is CPR lanterns. Number three, for me, are the most collectible lanterns, can't even talk anymore, is model 235. This one is dated from 1935. I like anything from the 30s, 40s more than what are made now. 235 is a two-mantle lantern. There's also a 234, which is the brother or smaller sister of this version. The 234s, not quite my favorite because they're so easy to fake. You can take a 242 seafoam, and there's a lot of those out there. It's not quite as easy to identify as a 235. 235 has a collar that was only available on this. It's really not an easy one to fake. Unfortunately, in the collector world, we have to deal with that. 235 kerosene is definitely my number three pick just because of rarity and how bright these are. I think that these are going to continue to rise in value also because there's just a real small window of time when these were made. Again, I'm picking the things that I think are going to hold their value or go up in value more. Everyone's going to say, well, this is more rare, or this was Office of Civil Defense. They weren't made for the general public. They would be worth more, but they made thousands of them. And they just took a standard lantern and etched, you know, the OCD number on there. Those aren't quite as, they didn't do anything with those. Whereas like the Forest Service and railroad lanterns were actually used doing something. That's what gets my interest. And you don't really have Office of Civil Defense collectors trying to get more of those lanterns, in my opinion. So trying to find something that has several groups collecting the same item is definitely worthwhile. But the 235 is on my list just because it's a very cool lantern. It's a very bright lantern. Kerosene, very easy to use. You can find kerosene anywhere. I get more comments on this when I go camping than any other. People want to come up and talk about it. And they always tell me, my dad had one just like that. And I always want to tell them, probably not just quite like that. Number 4 for me would probably be something like a poultry lantern or something like that. They're very collectible. They weren't made for the general public, but they're really not practical to use in camping. I made a video of mine lighting it. You can look at it. I'll put a link up here or a link in the description where you can look at it. It's a very cool lantern and it's on my list of collectibles, but it's just not practical for camping. So in lieu of that, I'm going to say number 4 for me is a whole series of lanterns. It's the 242 series because they were made over a large period of time. You've got 242 no letters, B, C, and on and on and on. They were also made for export. This one was for Australia. So having an Australian lantern here, especially in Texas where I'm at, is pretty unique and it's a lot of fun to use. These are just small, easy lanterns to carry around with you. Great camping lanterns. You can have a collection within a collection. There are so many different variations of these that there's even a 242K, which is a kerosene version. Now, those are highly sought after. But you could have a collection of 242s, a series, and if you complete that whole series, you've got a nice collection just in that. And I really like these lanterns for how easy they are to operate, how easy they are to find parts for, how easy, inexpensive they are to acquire to begin with, except for the 242K, which has gotten kind of out of control. Those are really sought after lanterns. But if you can go after a series of lanterns like that, I think you have a nice collection very easily without having to spend a lot of money. And it looks like a collection when you put it up as opposed to just having one railroad lantern or one Forest Service lantern to use. Last but not least, when you're collecting, also have to collect the tools that you're going to need to keep these going if you plan to use them. The mantles that they make now are junk. You can't buy anything that's any good anymore. So definitely if you're going to be collecting these, you want to make sure that you have good quality mantles to use with these. The mantles that are meant to be used with these lanterns that Coleman made specifically for them so that they operate correctly, so that they fill out and burn and they're the right color, the way that they were intended to. Anything that you buy now is junk, without exception. It's just junk. Find the original stuff to use on the original lanterns the way that they were intended to be, and you will enjoy your lanterns a lot more, as I do. This is also going up in value. Mantles used to, they sold at 39 cents. When I started, I could buy a pack for $2. Now, pretty much, if you can find a pack for $10, you're doing pretty good. So if you're in a garage sale, you see any of the mantles, definitely hang on to those for your collection. You will use them eventually. You can use mantles several times on a lantern, but eventually you're going to need to replace them. And having a good quality mantle or generator or any of the other parts that you need, definitely be on the lookout for those. Anyway, that's what I like to collect, what I think is going to go up in value. If you disagree with me, then collect what you want, and I'll collect what I want. But as long as you're collecting and enjoying these, that's all that really matters. If you think I forgot something, let me know below, and I will try to make a video and include it, because I have a lot of these. We could talk about this for a long time. Anyway, thanks for watching.